when we were invited to come here, we were first invited, happy to be with our colleagues from the DSSP because we are trying to engage in collaboration and have already engaged in collaboration. On the other hand, when we heard about the topic, I think both of us were, okay, yeah, online teaching, oh God, data management, oh God, you know, I'm an anthropologist, he's an economist. I mean, he's a bit more towards data management, but I'm pretty qualitative. And I was like, okay, what am I going to say here? Okay. Now, first of all, we'll shed some light on our thoughts on online teaching and our experiences with it. But I mean, since we are new to this forum, we have to say a few words about our center. I promise to be quick about that one. So where we're working together is the West African Center for Sustainable Rural Transformation. It's actually funded not by BMZ like your projects, but by the German Federal Foreign Office. And it's actually quite generously funded. So we have 2 5-year phase with an additional 5 years phase-out phase that we potentially get from 2027 onwards. The University of Bonn, ZEF, partners with University Abdou Moumouni from Niger, and then 2 universities from Ghana, University of Development Studies, where Michael comes from, and University of Business and Integrated Development Studies in Wa, also Northern Ghana. We engage in quite a lot of activities. So we have engaged in infrastructure enhancement. We have enhanced and partially newly structured 3 master programs in development management, agricultural economics, and sustainable rural transformation, where the partners in Niger come more from the science and technology background, focusing very much on renewable energies, whereas the others are more sort of social scientists, economists, focusing on sort of rural issues, rural-urban issues also. We have quite a number of scholarships and just a few PhD stipends so far. We focused on masters, also looking at the capacities at the universities to supervise, as well as a structure of the funding scheme. We have annual summer schools with students from all our partner universities, and then engage in quite a number of academic networking activities. One large area in our research is trying to find commonly funded research projects, because these are going to sort of hopefully enable us to sustainably run these centers in the 3 different points, and we have been quite sort of successful so far, and we continue to work on common research projects to get more stipends, get more research funding, because that's usually one of the difficulties, at least in our funding line, that there's very little research money for students. So it's much better for you to get research projects which have also funding for research initiative by students, while we can only offer, I don't know, 920 euro a year for a student, which is not really a lot, especially if you want to run a large-scale survey or you want to engage in soil science with a large number of samples or something like that. And what we also tried to engage in the last couple of years, and we started before Corona and have continued over Corona, thanks to online teaching also, and now had a return with us to Colombia, is to work together with DSSP and come to some sort of South-South collaboration, look at problems that exist in Ghana, problems that exist in Colombia, but also in Germany, and then come to sort of common teaching and sort of a comparison and discussion of experiences. This is our team, and I think some of these people are also here helping the SSP. So already in personnel, there's an overlap. So there's people from Niger, from Ghana, from Brazil and Germany working in this project. Now, to the topic we were asked to talk about, although in the last couple of days I received an invitation to change the topic. But so, I mean, looking at online teaching, I have to say that, as I said, I wasn't very thrilled when I was asked to talk about the topic, because I personally don't like it. I have to be honest. I personally don't like it. It's a great survival technique in times of crisis. And I mean, I've held scores of seminars online. I've taught in Germany, Ghana, Niger, Colombia, all online, done that, different courses on culture, gender and development, and agricultural commercialization. It's all written there. I don't need to really go into the details of that, you know. And I believe, yes, their knowledge transfer and also skill transfer is possible to a certain degree. Yeah, and I mean, besides the sort of knowledge transfer, we also have done some teaching and supervision, sort of, yeah, and obviously also the project management had to go online for quite a while, yeah, and in a way, I mean, it offers good opportunities, and I think I only repeating what everybody said already. Sort of, I mean, I've enjoyed the ability to reach spatially dispersed audiences. So we had the master class with students in Colombia, in teaching personnel in Germany, and then also students from Ghana and teachers from Ghana in one sort of virtual classroom. It's a great thing, obviously, yeah. And then I've also enjoyed the ability to multitask. So I've been in scores of boring meetings and preparing the lunch for my kids at the same time, or something like that, yeah. So it's helped my gender karma to a certain degree. Yeah, so I mean, there is things which are positive in it, but I mean, actually, from my subjective standpoint, sort of, I actually have a deep dissatisfaction with the missing interaction I get when I talk to an audience. I mean, so it's like, for me, communication, not for everybody, it's like, it's a multi-dimensional event. Gesture, posture, talking, looking in the eyes of people, you know, relating to people sort of in a physical manner is something I really miss when I do online teaching. And it really takes away the nuances of languages, takes away the nuances of making arguments, of shaking your head, bringing down the meaning of what you're saying, you know, I mean, using your ability to act besides talking alone. So that's something which I really found problematic. What I also miss is a feedback loop. So I can look in your eyes, I can see whether you're tired, I can see what's from somebody over there already yawning, and I can address that. I can talk to you, even in a quite large audience. I can sort of, you know, react to how people are. Something I miss online. I mean, it's particularly so if you teach maybe in an African context where, because of limitations in bandwidth, people have to switch off their cameras. You don't see anybody. You talk into sort of a black hole, a black box, and you know, you have very limited sort of reaction by the audience. So that's something which also as a presenter, I miss. Okay, that's something, I mean, you like when you're on stage in a way, yeah. And then sort of obviously there's this feedback loop. So I mean, if you have, especially in an intercultural setting or a multilingual setting, you have people who have different abilities to speak a language, to understand you. And sometimes you can see that somebody doesn't understand you. And you can ask colleagues to interpret it, things which doesn't happen easily sort of in online teaching. So for me, I mean, it's a big loss in the depth of teaching and obviously the discussion we're having. And obviously also sort of a reduction in the extracurricular interaction I have with students, where I really come to know them to a certain degree. But also like looking at it from the student perspective, I would say that there's sort of what is, especially in our context, what it has is a lack of international exposure. So one big part of these exchange programs, which I have been now managing since 15 years or so, is sort of this exposure, having an academic experience above, meeting other people. I mean, developing sort of what I would call maybe an academic habitus or something like that. A certain way how to behave in an international academic crowd and so on is something which is lacking if you just exposed to online teaching. Yeah, and then, but obviously also the everyday interaction, going to buy something, going to catch the train or a flight, you know, I mean, developing intercultural competence and also develop language along with it. So these are things which I think students are lacking when they are more or less only in digital programs. Apart from that, there's obvious and things also discussed in Germany is, and people show the difficulties in network building if you're not in the university. There's this equity problems. I was already talking, I mean, the can be access to infrastructure, but that can be also, I mean, if you don't speak a language as well as others. So, I mean, there is quite a number of equity problems. And then out of coming from that, a reduction in career opportunities, especially like in an African context, you know, I mean, how do you get a job in the university? By knowing your seniors, by spending time with them, by convincing them that you are able to be a good senior researcher, a good lecturer, or something like that. This is something which is missing the point of time. I don't see many donors here again, but I also had a slide for the donors. So I also think from the donors' perspective, there's sort of something which is missing. Yeah, so I think Lars told us that, I mean, exchange for change. So the idea is to solve global problems. And I believe that at the forefront, that is also sort of actually something, you know, many people in those institutions want, and what we maybe as a community want. But obviously what we're doing here in our context is also something I would call science diplomacy. Okay, so we are actually sort of trying to generate networks and generate social capital, yes, through establishing relationships of informality, of trust, of loyalty between individuals from different countries, from different cultures. Yeah, and I mean, that is obviously also sort of, you may call it sort of neo-colonial or post-colonial, to promote certain shared values, sort of, you know, throughout the world. And on the other hand, is also trying to create loyalty and support for our home country, which is giving the funds to sort of run these projects. Yeah? So the idea behind starting programs is also to create leaders, to create scientists, you know, who also have some sympathy for Germany in the end. Okay, so this is also part of it. And I guess when you sort of, you know, dwell too much on digital learning and on digi-facing things, you know, that you reduce career opportunities for the people you want to be in decision-making positions. Yeah, but you also fail to create the social capital, the informality, the networks that actually sort of underlie this sort of, you know, objective to come to a better collaboration between, let's say, Colombia or Ghana and Germany. Otherwise. So I mean, by sort of focusing too much on digitalization, you undermine some of your own purpose. So I mean, to just come to an end, I hope I didn't exceed my time too much. We have sort of some, I mean, yes, knowledge and skill transfer is possible. It's a great tool in the crisis, online teaching or online meetings are a great tool in crisis situations, or if you have spatially dispersed audiences. However, I feel that teaching and the interaction with students bereft of that nuances, the learning of intercultural skills and the acquisition of language suffers. Building of academic habitus and networks is certainly reduced, and therefore career opportunities for those people who work with are curtailed. So in the end, I believe that social capital and informality sort of, the reduction in social capital and informality also undermines certain donor objectives in creating international networks that promote our values and lead to collaboration. While online teaching, and we saw the, I mean, interesting figures, you know, also presented by DEAD and other research institutions, you know, we can have the numbers of stipend holders, of interaction, of workshops, also when we do online teaching. Yeah, so we can have nice presentations, but I feel that we sort of fail to achieve some of the really underlying opportunities. Thank you very much at this point.
Okay. I think Wolfram was looking at my slides and then presenting. So I guess I'm going to be pretty short. Sabine said we are Siamese, and I don't like that description. Even though we are friends, we don't easily agree with each other. That is what people assume. That's why we are here presenting together. Most of the time we are fighting. You can ask Professor Barrera, Susanna is out there. She knows it. Aline and Co, they know. And we never agree on which path to take. And when we have to use Google Map, it ends up leading us into trouble like it did in Bogota in 2018. We fought over which path to pass and then we ended up somewhere. But he has shared a lot of perspectives. I'm in a digitization presentation. So I'll put it this way. When you are not hearing me, like you have difficulty hearing me, you can close your eyes and then concentrate on hearing me. And that's what happens when you have bandwidth problems during online lectures. You can also leave your name tag on the table and your bag, plus your glass, and walk out. And I assume you are still sitting there. That is when you put off your camera during an online lecture. And then at the end of the day, I'll still count you as present. And then when I call, and if you are not in there, you can put it on and go doing something else, and I'll still count you as part of the lectures. And the statistics are very good. We are able to do the things we do during conventional times, get the data, and assume the quality is the same. So that is the challenge we are dealing with here. I remember in 2019, we were coming from Port Elizabeth after attending the first digitization conference by the DAAD. And we're talking about the fact that in some years to come, universities as they exist now wouldn't be there. So we got to Ghana, and I think a few days later, they closed down. And then I think a week later, I got a call from the Ghana Health Service that immigration had reported that I came from South Africa about 2 weeks ago, and there was somebody who had COVID behind me. So how am I feeling? Then they described the symptoms. I said, I was feeling exactly this way 3 weeks ago. Do I need to come? And they said, no, just be where you are. But those were the early days of COVID. I'm going to talk about the fact that, yes, it is possible to go online with some teaching, but on a very good day when the internet is good, you see my university this way. But most of the time you don't see it, okay? I just wanted you to see it because I think the internet is good here. So if you can't see the picture of the university, then you can imagine teaching the students in the university virtually. That is the challenge you are going to face. That typically describes what I go through as a scholar in Africa going online. Wolfram has already tried to describe my university. People ask me why he sounds the way he's sounding. That means he spent too much time in Africa. So I said it was a compelled challenge. A compelled challenge because none of us plan to go online. And in fact, where I come from, we are miles away from going completely digital. So when COVID struck and we had to teach online, I started hearing digitization. And I thought what we were doing is internetization, not digitization. That is just taking your lecture, going online and meeting your students and trying to see that you can give them something so that they don't lose everything because you can't meet them personally. The digitization is a whole lot of a complex system which was not happening in many contexts. And for us in sub-Saharan Africa, we were still not there. In fact, we were still trying to have libraries that had the books that we required to teach. We weren't even thinking of having digital books. So when we had to go online, the books that students were competing for were not physically available. They couldn't get access to it. So I have to come and teach 30 minutes, and he should have been in the library, be able to get access to that book. But because it's COVID, I assume that I taught the students learn, I examined them in a different way. The results are okay. But is it actually the same? In Ghana, we have something called the value is not the same. We needed to talk about, equipping the learner and then also the instructor. I started taking lessons in Moodle, I think, because of our digitization project on how to put our content online. And it came out with the whole issues that everybody raised here: copyrights, protection, and a whole lot of things. Our students, many of them, don't have access to these online facilities for learning and even the software like Moodle. So what I'm saying here is, much as we were able to cope with, and let's describe it as a coping strategy rather than an alternative to what is going on, we should agree that yes, sometimes we can mix this digitization with what is going on here. But as Wolfram rightly said, they are not substitutes. Since I don't have time, I won't present in a structured way. Let me just give an example. I asked somebody, where is Africa going with digitization? Let's say the universities in sub-Saharan Africa. We are regressing. You people talk about the new normal, we are going back to the old normal. I don't want to burst anybody's bubble that from now on we are going to have, no. We are not providing the infrastructure to go digital because we don't have the resources. We're still trying to get where many of the universities in the north and the well-endowed universities were before COVID. So after COVID, we thank God it's gone. It's what I call the vulture syndrome. When is the next pandemic going to hit? We don't think it's going to come anytime soon. So we are actually regressing back to the old normal, and online teaching and online meetings only happen if everything else doesn't work out. So that is the real challenge here. I don't want to rehash what everybody knows. There were technology issues, and the quality is not the same. I was teaching online for the Colombian students. Then I went there, I think some weeks ago. I know all their names there. Michael gave me coca leaves when I was struggling with the altitude in Bogota. Pablo gave me his internet when I didn't have connectivity. Diego tried to tell me, okay, it's good, you get used to it and all those things. So I know them here, I'm connecting with them. Carolina is here sort of once. I can't say the same about those I taught virtually. I don't remember them. So that is a classic example that much as it is possible for us to do it when there's a challenge, it is not the same. And we must remain mindful about that. Have we achieved results? Yes. Can we use it when we cannot be normal? Okay. But that dichotomy still exists. Let me throw a little silver lining in here. If you look at what happened with the telecommunication sector in terms of mobile telephony, yes, Africa more or less leapfrogged the rest of the world by becoming, with the high mobile phone penetration. So we didn't go from not having phones to landlines before mobile phones. But the question is, can we repeat that when it comes to digital learning? And I'm saying that the answer is not that straightforward. The infrastructure is more expensive than even the conventional one. And given the resource constraints, if we move very fast with digitization, we run the risk of leaving many universities in the global south behind. If we are too enthused with the idea of putting everything online, or we can now run this thing with half the budget because half the participants will be online. And that is why you hear nowadays. What I want to stress here in terms of adding to what Wolfram said is that the value is not the same, the quality is not the same. We can do with both, but we shouldn't try to more or less run faster or run before we learn to walk. That is my short submission. Thank you.